Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're tackling something that can literally rescue your Android app from disaster, Kotlin Coroutines. We're going to see how they stop your app from becoming slow, clunky, and unresponsive.
You know the feeling, right? We've all been there. You tap a button in an app and absolutely nothing happens. The whole screen just freezes up, and then you get that infamous application not responding dialog. It's pretty much the worst experience a user can have. So what's actually going on here? Why does this happen?
Okay, to figure out why your app is freezing, we need to do a little detective work. And when we investigate the scene of the crime, there's one usual suspect that almost always shows up, something called the main thread.
So think of the main thread as the absolute workhorse for your app's user interface. Every single thing the user sees, every screen update, every button tap, every smooth animation, it all has to go through this one single thread. But here's its big weakness. It can only do one thing at a time. So if you give it a really long job to do, everything else just stops. Your UI is completely frozen.
And what are these long jobs? Well, classic examples are things like network requests or big database queries. When you try to run these directly on the main thread, they become blocking operations. They literally stop the main thread cold and say, nope, nobody moves until I'm finished. The entire user interface is held hostage. And the result? Yep, a frozen app.
So the big question is, how do we get these long tasks done without bringing our app to a grinding halt? Well, this is where our hero finally enters the picture, Kotlin Coroutines. They are the modern and, frankly, the recommended way to handle this kind of asynchronous work on Android.
A coroutine lets you run tasks in the background without all the headaches and heavy lifting of traditional threads. It's a way to write asynchronous, non-blocking code that, and this is the best part, looks and feels almost exactly like the simple, straightforward code you're used to writing. It is a total game changer, and coroutines come packed with some serious superpowers.
And these features right here are what make coroutines so awesome. They're incredibly lightweight, which means you can launch thousands of them and not even break a sweat. They seriously help you avoid memory leaks with a concept we'll talk about called structured concurrency. They have cancellation built right in, and they're deeply woven into the fabric of the Jetpack libraries that you're probably already using every day.
All right, enough of the theory. Let's get our hands dirty and see how we can actually use coroutines to fix that code that was freezing our app. Our goal here is to make our network call main safe, which is just a fancy way of saying we can call it from the main thread without blocking a thing.
And this slide just says it all. Look at the difference. On the left, that's the before, the simple blocking call that freezes our beautiful UI. On the right, the after. We've wrapped that same request in a coroutine, and now it just magically runs in the background. The UI stays snappy and responsive. It's such a small code change, but the impact on the user experience is absolutely massive.
So how does that after code actually work its magic? Well, it all starts with View Model Scope. This is a special coroutine scope that we get from the Android Jetpack libraries. The important thing to know is that it's directly tied to the lifecycle of our view model. Next up, you see that little word .launch. This is what's known as a coroutine builder. It's the thing that actually creates and fires off our new coroutine, and it does it without blocking the thread it's on. It's basically like saying, hey computer, go run this task over there and don't make me wait for you to finish. Now, for any of this to work, the function that does the heavy lifting, in our case, make login request, it needs to be marked with this magic keyword, suspend. This is a signal to the Kotlin compiler that this function is special. It can be paused and then resumed later on. This is the absolute key that lets a coroutine do long-running work without blocking anything.
And here's the final piece of the puzzle. Inside our repository function, we use withcontext dispatchers.io. This little command is what safely switches our code over to a background thread pool that's specifically optimized for import-output operations, like networking. This is what makes our suspend function truly main safe.
So all these pieces working together don't just make your app more responsive, they also team up to prevent one of the most annoying, hard-to-find bugs in all of Android development, memory leaks. You see, coroutines follow this amazing principle called structured concurrency. It's a really simple idea, but it has some powerful consequences. Basically, coroutines are always launched inside a scope, and when that scope is canceled, all the work that was started inside it gets automatically cleaned up, no loose ends. And that is why View Model Scope is so incredibly powerful. It's smart. It knows about the Android lifecycle. So imagine a user starts a network request,
but then they get impatient and navigate away from the screen. The view model gets destroyed. When that happens, view model scope is automatically canceled and it takes our network request coroutine with it. No wasted battery, no wasted data, and no memory leaks. It's automatic cleanup. It's just brilliant.
So let's wrap this up. The key takeaway is pretty clear. Blocking the main thread is a recipe for disaster. Coroutines give us this modern, elegant, and safe way to run our background tasks. By using things like view model scope, suspend functions, and the power of structured concurrency, we can write really complex asynchronous code at somehow still easy to read and way safer to run.
So, by embracing coroutines, you've really unlocked the power to build fast, responsive, and rock-solid Android apps. Now that you have the tools to avoid the dreaded freeze, the only question left is, what amazing experience are you going to build next?